Welcome back to another episode of Father Mick's Magic, exploring the mysteries of life and faith through the gift of magic. This trick that I'm about to share with you is a very famous secular trick. It's called the Chinese sticks. And I've always enjoyed it as a magic trick, but I also believe it's got some beautiful lessons to teach us. And so I invite you, first of all, to watch it as a magic trick. And as I'm doing it, I will be pointing to some of the messages as well. So enjoy. Okay, so just pretend we didn't see this, okay? I want to show you a beautiful mystery, the mystery of connection. So, all of us see ourselves as individuals, don't we? But you know that in your family, you're connected to your family, and when you do a good thing or the family does a good thing, it affects you, even though your family and your brothers and sisters are still individuals. And also when you do a bad choice, it affects your family. And what happens? Even though you're just an individual, it affects them. And so sometimes we can work it out in a family. But the mystery is that it happens in your classroom as well. And so when you make good choices in your class, even though you're just an individual, it affects all the other members of the class. And when you make a bad choice, or someone else makes a bad choice, even though they're individuals, it affects you too. And so you can make good choices or bad choices, and you're affecting everyone, even though you're just an individual. But the biggest mystery, the most mysterious connection is with God, and the way in which we're connected to God, even though sometimes God feels a long way away from us. And so in the same way, even though you think you're just an individual, the amazing thing is when you choose to make a good choice, it affects God as well in a beautiful way. And also when you make, if you make bad choices, God, there's a sadness for God when you make that bad choice. And like this one, I actually show you how it's done because we use the invisible string. Here it is, the invisible string. You can have it again. And so when you're ready, just slowly push it down, push it down, push it down, push it down. Okay, I'll disconnect and you can take that invisible string and you can show your parents how to do this trick as well. So thank you everyone for your attention, and I pray God blesses you and helps you to understand some of the mysteries of life through these little magic tricks. So, did you enjoy it? I hope so. And I hope you felt some of the mystery of it. The idea of connection is something that's always been important to me, or I've always wondered about it. My connection to my family, my connection to my friends, my connection to the world, my connection to God. And so it's always a question for me. And what is it that makes those connections strong? And that because I experience them as quite mysterious. And so when I first saw this trick done, it just awakened within me that question that I had about connections. And I thought, I think I can make a little story that you heard around it, that we are individuals. And that's represented by each of the sticks and the pom-poms here and the string as separate. But when we're connected to our family, the good that our family has and does, even though our family members all think they're individuals, affects us. And in the same way, the good or sometimes the bad choices that we make affect our family as well. And so I encourage you to be thinking about that. Thinking about those your experience in your family of how the good that your family does, you share in. And maybe we all have some brokenness in our life, and we share in the brokenness from our family as well. In my own family, some of my family members have struggled with some addictions, and all of us share in that struggle. And all of us, but also my family is incredibly gifted with things like generosity and joyfulness. And I'm gifted by those gifts from my family. And so I receive those gifts as well. And so, even though I feel like I'm an individual, and I am, and sometimes we can understand it in family. And so when I hold the sticks like this, they all think there must be a string going between the two. But when I separate them, they go, what? Hey, wait a sec, that should work. And then I think of when I hold the sticks like this, I think of it in community, or if I'm a young person in my classroom. And again, the good that is done in our class, if our class operates and works well together, it affects me. I share in that goodness. But also when the class is making very bad choices and hindering our learning and enjoyment together, I experience that. And so there's that connection. But it's a mysterious connection. It's not like I can hold it up for you and say, there's the connection in the class, or there's the connection in community, or there's the connection in our country even. The good of our country, we share in it. But also the shame of our country, we share in it. And then obviously I'm a person of deep faith. And so I often wonder about this connection with God. And so, it seems so far away a lot of the time, that connection. And yet, somehow, again, the mystery of the good that I do here blesses God as well, somehow. And the bad choices certainly affects God in terms of saddening God. And the same way, God's goodness, I blessed it. And of course, I finished the trick just with a joke. It's got no meaning in it, but most of the children or most of the adults are trying to work, how's it do it? How's it able to pull one and the other goes? And I want you to be thinking about that in your real life. In your family, how does that work? In your community, how does that work? And with God, how does it work? I don't know the answer. I just know that the connection is there. And so I say, look, mysteriously, I'm using invisible string. And I give it to a child and I say, now pull it. And what happens is it just moves up. And then I give the string to the child and tell the child to also, they can now make the sticks at home, which is obviously just a joke. And usually they just smile as they're holding this mysterious connection. But I hope it's making them think of those real connections. Connection to family, connection to community, and connection to God. When I share this trick, I guess it makes you think about your connections and the struggle sometimes, especially when you feel the connection, but it appears as though your son and daughter, especially in teenage years or early adult life, doesn't feel the connection. And so you're feeling their pain, but they're not always feeling your pain. And that hurts deeply. What is it how do we respond in those situations? I'm not 100% sure how to respond, but I know the connection is there. I don't understand exactly how it's there, but I believe that I suppose it's my love is part of the connection, if it's family or if it's a friend. And I say to myself, I'm going to keep that connection. I've got two options. I can cut the connection because it's hurting me too much. But if I cut that connection, I'm disconnecting myself from life. And even in my pain, There will be times when there's only a one-way connection. And I know it was like what awakened Jesus' connection to us. He went to the cross, crucified, and died because we said we didn't want him, we didn't care. And yet he kept loving us and pouring out his life for us, offering us that connection. And eventually, us of faith awakened to the love of Jesus for us. And we responded, and now we have that two-way connection with Jesus. And I think it's the same in families. I think it's the same with friends. But I know how hard it is when the other person has almost disconnected themselves and don't reciprocate that connection. But maybe that's where I know personally, I draw on my connection with God to keep that connection, whether it's with someone in my family or a friend or a parishioner. That's what I use to keep my connection with them, even when they're rejecting my connection. And I finish with a reading from Scripture that's speaking to this last magic trick about connections. And it's the story from John's Gospel, John 15, where Jesus talks about his connection to us. He talks to us that he is the true vine and we are the branches. And so Jesus uses that image to try to say how much we're connected to him, just as I was trying to say how much we're connected through the magic Chinese sticks. So let's listen to Jesus talking to us. Jesus said, "I am the true grapevine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch of mine that doesn't produce fruit, and he prunes the branches that do bear fruit, so that they will produce even more. You have already been pruned and purified by the messages that I've been sharing with you. Remain in Jesus, and Jesus will remain in you. For a branch cannot produce fruit if it is severed from the vine. I cannot bear fruit without being connected to Jesus, and I believe you will not be able to bear fruit long without being connected to the vine." And so, yes, Jesus is the vine. We are the branches. And so may we learn to bear fruit and draw nourishment and life and grace and love through that connection to Jesus. God bless, and I wish you well in everything that you do.
Are you searching for answers? Discover your true identity. Stay tuned to Shalom World.